Hi, and welcome to another edition of Hey Coach. This is our second show back after a long hiatus, and I want to welcome the new athletic director at St. Lucie West Centennial, Blake Coombs. Thank you for coming up today. I really appreciate it.
Pleasure to be here.
You know, school means a lot to me. I was there 17 years. Hear great things about you, that you're doing it. It's always a special place for me. I had my 3 sons graduated from there. My daughter-in-law graduated from there. So it's, keep that tradition going. And I'm always going to root for the Eagles.
Yeah, and I think you're still pretty popular with the staff and everybody there too. So.
Not too many left after we did that. But, what that school did for my sons, my middle son, AJ, is going to be a doctor in 3 months. And then, Joe's teaching up at Westwood, and Nick's got his own business. So I got to really thank all the teachers that were at Centennial. But came in a tough year, my friend.
So yeah, it's been a little challenging.
Challenging on that. I know with the COVID and everything. What are some of the, before we even get started, let's go a little bit on your background, Blake.
Okay. I'm originally from Eastern Kentucky. That's where I grew up. That's where I went to high school. From high school, I went to the University of Kentucky, and I ended up graduating from Morehead State University with a degree in sport management.
You got to be a big basketball fan.
That stereotype, pretty accurate. We're crazy. But from there, part of the curriculum was an internship, and to fulfill the internship, I ended up in Jupiter at Roger Dean Stadium, working for the Cardinals and the Marlins.
Really? Oh, that's great.
Yeah, so I spent a year there, and from there I ended up making a relationship with a person at the Palm Beach County School District, so I ended up in a school in Wellington, a middle school, Polo Park.
Okay.
And from there I took over as athletic director, was there for 8 years, and I ended up in St. Lucie County.
Okay.
So here I am. I was at Treasure Coast for a couple of years, Treasure Coast High School, as the weightlifting coach.
Okay.
And then brought me to here.
I know you got a tremendous challenge this year, not just being an athletic director, because that's tough enough. But with the COVID going on, it's just a tremendous challenge. The one thing, if I can give you a little bit of advice, is lean on your fellow athletic directors. I mean, I worked with Jill, who's absolutely wonderful up at Lincoln Park. Danny's been my closest friend for 30 years, and I have learned so much from Jay. I didn't have really much of a chance to work with Pete that much, but you all have the same problems, okay? Everybody's in it. I mean, the only time you're rooting against each other is when you play each other. But if you ever have a problem, go with that, because everybody's problems are the same on that and everything.
Yeah, I think we've been blessed in a lot of ways in that regard, that we're all kind of starting from scratch.
Yes.
So it's forced everyone to come together and try to solve a lot of these problems together. Because you're dead
It's unknown.
on.
It's unknown.
You're right. You're spot on.
Right.
That, we all do have the same problems.
Right.
They're all been thrust upon us, out of nowhere at the same time. So I think we've done a good job of really coming together and trying to do the best thing we can for the kids.
And I think the hardest thing was not knowing when you were going to start, because the state waffled back and forth. And, I talked to a lot of the people up at the board of directors, and, a lot of them were hoping that they would start later, because it was the state's so divided. We got the counties south of us that are not even going to start football until October, Dayton, Broward, maybe not until November. So and again, hopefully everybody's following the precautions, and we're going to go over some of them in a few minutes and everything. Well, what do you think your greatest challenge is?
I think what you were just saying at the beginning, it was the uncertainty, not having a clear answer from anyone on start dates or anything. So we were fielding questions from the parents and the coaches, and the uncertainty was really, really difficult there for a while. But now that we have clear start dates, and now that we're in it, we're involved, I feel like every game that goes by, every day we have a practice, that everything successful kind of builds confidence, and the administrators that maybe we do know what we're doing, and kind of loosen the reins a little bit. And as far as challenges go, though, I would say the inconsistency maybe on the rules from place to place is difficult.
Yes.
Because and it's difficult for each county to get completely in sync, but it's difficult for our parents to say, if you're going to play a game in this county, here's a set of rules. Now you're going to a different county, ticketing rules, here's a completely different set. So that's been a pretty big challenge. It still is.
See, that's where I think Florida high school association kind of missed the boat. I was talking to a good friend of mine who's up in Ohio, and they are very, they started even earlier than Florida did. I know they didn't have the cases that we had, but they are so strict, and it's one rule for the whole state. Obviously, it's a smaller state, big population, but they are making every school have a COVID person at a game. That's not the athletic director. You got enough jobs to do. And that person is required, their job is to make sure the social distancing, make sure the masks, make sure that everything's clean. That's their only job. And they're even sending people from the Ohio Association randomly to check on the schools to make it a little bit easier for you. But like you said, you have different rules about ticketing. Can you go over, if I'm a parent and I want to go to one of the games, say I want to go to your first football game, what do I have to do?
Well, for our school,
Your school,
for St. Lucie West Centennial, we have elected to do all online ticketing. So the district picked up a vendor, Ticket Spigot, and they're a national company. They do a lot of college games, but we're asking our parents or students to go download the Ticket Spigot app. And each week, if it's a football game, for example, I've got on Saturdays, we have access codes. So since the attendance is so limited, we have created access codes for each, the home side, away side, and then the staff and family tickets. So to try to ensure that the parents of the kids have first dibs on the tickets, right? So we'll send those out on Saturday to the coaches. The coaches can give those access codes out however they choose. So if you wanted to go seniors first, juniors, sophomores, or just the varsity, however you choose. But here's your allotment of tickets. You could distribute this access code however you choose. And then on Wednesday, at that point, we've given everybody an opportunity. So on Wednesday, we would release the access code through our social media, through the school, so the kids would have an opportunity. So whatever tickets are left over, then the kids, other parents, anyone that wants a ticket can then buy a ticket.
So if I'm coming to the game to see my son play football, what do I have to bring?
You have to bring your cell phone. That's it. There's no, the district's been very clear on no tickets will be sold at the gate of any athletic event as of now. So if you show up to a game, you need to have Ticket Spigot downloaded on your phone and the ticket pulled up. The ticket taker, the app works, the ticket taker will see that you're a ticketed person, and there's a button, they press that, it virtually tears the ticket, and then you're good to go. This way it ensures on my end too, and on the game administrators, if the school district or whoever were to audit us and say, you're limited to 15% capacity,
Okay,
show us.
So South County Stadium would be about what?
700.
700 both sides?
No, that's total.
It's total. So
Total. We've been asked to keep it the capacity of the people inside the gates, excluding the players, at 700
That's
people.
going to be tough.
It
is going to be tough.
It's challenging. Yeah. It's been challenging, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
And that's the good thing about the electronic ticketing. Once they're gone, they're gone.
Right.
And I can keep track, and I can email the coaches, hey, you've got 100 tickets left.
That's a good idea.
So, maybe let your parents know you better get on it if you want tickets.
Now, inside, be a little more challenging. Volleyball, I know that we got a very, very big gym over there.
St. Lucie West Centennial has, the largest gym in the area. So with ours, we did the same thing. With the 6-foot radius, we were able to go and measure out each seat. We put tape down on the seats that were available. This is an available spot. You can sit here. So the instruction is when you come in, please continue to wear your mask and sit on a piece of tape. So if you're on the tape, we know you're distanced away from the rest of the spectators.
Yeah, now volleyball, I don't think it's going to be a big problem, okay?
Mm-hmm.
But I think when you get to a big basketball game, what are we talking about capacity in the gym there?
Well, as of now, it's the same capacity. So again, we have a good situation that our gym is as big as it is. So I can fit 50 spectators on each side, plus the teams.
Okay.
So the varsity or junior varsity, while the other team is playing, they can sit in the stands and watch the game. I know some of the other high schools with more limited seating, they're having to take the varsity or junior varsity kids out of the gym, put them in a classroom while the other team is playing.
Wow.
Yeah. So basketball, you're right. We've kind of had those discussions already. When you're used to having 1,000 people in the gym,
Yes,
and now you can have 100. Which I mean, the answer we've kind of came up with collectively would be live streaming.
Can you explain that a little bit, the live stream? I know we talked about it before. It's tough.
Yeah, it's been tough. It's a pretty big undertaking, and for somebody like me, for example, that has no experience in that at all, to all of a sudden say, now you need to be able to live stream these games out to all these people. With the technology and all the equipment that you need, it's been difficult and a daily struggle. But we're getting there, and I think easily. I mean, my goal is by next Friday when we have our first home football game, to feel competent and confident that we can stream the game out, advertise it, and put a decent enough production on that I would feel comfortable asking someone to pay for that, because I think that's the big fear of mine and what we talked about collectively as all athletic directors in the area. It's difficult to ask someone to pay $6, $7 for a game. It doesn't need to look like Monday Night Football, but I would like them to have some type of production value that, they can keep up with the game and at least know what's going on.
So do you provide the announcers, or are they given to you?
Well, nothing is provided to us. So luckily, we had a couple of teachers that wanted to step up, and we're interested in that. So yeah, our basketball coach, Chris Carinante, has offered to be our lead announcer.
Now he
for our
would
football games.
do it from the booth.
Correct. Yeah, the game is streamed through the same sideline cameras and the replay cameras that the coaches use on the sideline. And yeah, you just speak into the iPad and out it goes.
That's pretty cool. Once you get it started, I think, hopefully this time next year we're not talking about this, but, once you get it started, I think it'll be a little bit easier. I think football is going to be a lot easier than the other sports to do.
I think
the gym.
From a revenue perspective, I think it's going to be it's a huge opportunity for us. South Florida high school football it's a big deal, and people are interested in it. I know I have family in Kentucky. I was trying to get it all working yesterday during our junior varsity game. I called my brother in Kentucky, like, hey, would you be interested in jumping on and seeing? He loved it. And a lot of the players' families have come up to me and said, Dad, once you get this going, maybe grandparents or other relatives that live outside the state that would be, that would love to have the opportunity to watch it. So I think it's going to be a really big revenue driver for us once we get it going, and it's a good product.
You would just go on the internet and log on, or?
Correct. Well, there's no different. Again, there's not as much continuity as I think it would be nicer to have some continuity amongst all the teams. But like for us, for example, we use a company called Sports Scope. So it's fairly simple. I think it is. They just go on to Sports Scope, search St. Lucie West Centennial, find the game, press click the game, and it'll bring up a buy box, and you're going. And there are, with all this going on, every high school in the country is looking for the same service. So there's tons of, we're getting bombarded with companies trying to sell streaming. Yeah. But that's, it's just who you decide to go with.
Now, what has changed about the eligibility? I know the athletic fees have changed. It used to be, I know when I left 3 years ago, it was $100, and that would cover your insurance, that would cover, you would get a ticket to go into any game for free, except for football, any home game, which, if you go to 6, 7 home games, you get some of your money back. And also you could play as many sports as you wanted for that $100. Then it was down to $75, I think, last year, and now it's different this year.
Yeah, we discussed that, and what we decided, mainly because of the kids in the spring sports last year, some of them were really, they paid the $100, and they were really limited on what they were able to do. So with all the uncertainty, we decided to do $25 per sport.
Okay.
So that way, a kid plays 3 sports, 75, the math. But then we also elected to get into the games for free, since the capacity is so limited anyway, that won't be good for that. So the $25 will just go to offset some of the officiating costs and the
You're
insurance
still going to
costs.
have the officiating costs. You're still going to have the game workers and the security costs, but you're not going to have the revenue coming in.
Correct. Yeah, it's pretty limited from what it has been. But at least, I mean, for the $25, the thought is from the parent's perspective,
Sure.
instead of dumping $100 in
No.
and then
No.
all of a sudden, we're canceled. This way, if it's 25, that's a lot less of a hit to somebody
Yeah,
and
and
the event.
I was over at Martin County last year helping with the baseball. We got 7 games in before we had to get shut down and everything. But now, one of the changes this year with football is the new playoff format. Now, if I'm not mistaken, you have to let them know by tomorrow, the 18th, if you're going to be in the state series playoffs or not. Now, I would think everybody in at least all the public schools in Palm Beach, Broward, and Dade are going to opt out to have their own league because it would be very, very unfair to them to go into the playoffs with only 1 or 2 games. Okay. Now, a good friend of mine, Jeff McClain, came up with this idea about this blind draw. If you want to explain that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's, from what I understand, it's pretty much just like you said. So regardless of record, regardless of how many games played, everyone's going to be eligible for the playoffs.
Right.
And they're just going to blind draw out of each district,
And
which should be,
you're going to be watching TV that night.
It's going to be interesting, yeah. I mean, because the 2 best teams in a district could play in the first round, and I can see why they did it.
Yeah, you had no choice.
Correct.
I mean, there was a lot of, watching the board of directors meeting, there was a lot of proposals, but this is the only one that was equitable for everybody. But they're going to have to rearrange a few things because if there's nobody south of us.
Yeah, that's what we're all kind of waiting. I guess the FHSA, I'm assuming, is waiting on that opt-out date. And then from there, they'll make the decision on how to reorganize.
Because you're only going to have a blind draw in your region. You're not going to have a first game where you have to go up to Tallahassee.
Correct. That's what. That's
It's only in your region. So this region here is going to be limited because if I'm not mistaken, a lot of your first round regional games would have been south.
Correct. Yeah. So we're all in the same boat. We're just kind of in a wait and see. But I mean, I think from the coaches' perspective, I know a few of the local coaches. I think everybody's just happy to be playing and to give the kids I know the kids have been working so hard over the summer and with conditioning and everything just to have an opportunity to play. I mean, wins and losses are great, but I think they're really more focused on just let's keep going, like I said, building the confidence. Every game that goes by and we get through it, everybody's happy. That builds a little more confidence, So I think that's the primary focus, just getting them some games, getting through.
You said that so correctly because, I would say 6 weeks ago, I doubt you would be even playing.
Yeah.
And you just want to get through this year. And one of the toughest things you're going to have to do, and no matter how good your coaches are, they got to think like you. You always say safety first. Well, now it's definitely safety first because it doesn't just be that one young man, and you've been through it already with a quarantine, and we had 3 schools up there. It was just one person. Is that correct? One player that got tested positive?
I think that's, yeah.
And then they had to shut down everything. And I keep watching the colleges, and I know I'm a big college football fan. Me and my good buddy Fred Alamade, we're all time. We watch every single game. And, we were disappointed that the Big Ten didn't opt in right at first. Now they have changed their mind. But you're always worried. Suppose you get to a big game and that team's quarantined. I know there was just something on the wire today. BYU, which has a very good team, was supposed to play Army this week, and that got quarantined. And somebody else playing North Carolina this week, that got quarantined.
Yeah.
So I think for what your coaches got to understand is that the COVID training is just as important as practicing. Maybe, well, it's more important than practicing. Because, one mistake can shut you down.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and I think our administration's made that clear. And I think the coaches understand that. In sport by sport, some sports are obviously more difficult than others. And football is obviously the most difficult because of just the sheer number of the the athletes that are out there, trying to, coordinate. For an example, like the locker room situation, there's you need to have a plan on the locker room, who's in there at what time, and it's obviously a limited amount of kids in there at a time. So when you've got 80 kids, moving them in 9 at a time, like what do you do with the other 80 while those 9 are trying to hurry and get their stuff on?
And that's, like you said, that's your school. What's going to happen when you travel?
It's it's difficult.
Yeah.
I mean, it's buses, like on football, like that's your locker room, and the buses are limited to 1 per seat. That's your locker room.
So you're going to
right
be
away.
taking 3 buses, probably.
We're trying to limit it. I mean, just from we were talking earlier about the lack of revenue. We're going to try to limit it to 2 buses.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, those. Once you really start to peel it back, everything that you've done in the past needs to be adjusted in some way.
Yeah.
You have to rethink everything to try to accommodate all the new rules. But
Yeah, it's going to be a trial by error, but the error could be, pretty big on that. Have the coaches have any training? Have they had an in-service on COVID?
yes, the school district put out, it's actually NFHS training. And all the coaches that are going to be around kids have been required to take that. In addition, the district put out guidance on the different phases. And they've had, I'm sure they could tell you tons of training.
See, I was always a big proponent of, the teachers have in-services every year to get better. What were the coaches doing? My big thing was, when I was down in Miami at Pace and everything, I used to tell my coaches all the time, I says, hey, you're going to tell your kids what to do over the summer for them to get better. What are you going to do to get better? What are you going to improve on? And, Jay Stewart, who was the county AD when he was at Central, now he's over at Treasure Coast, we used to have these in-services, which was a whole day in-service the Saturday before school started. And we brought in college coaches, we brought in doctors, we brought successful high school coaches in, we brought athletic directors in, we brought trainers in, and we went through our classes. Now, obviously, if you had to do something like that, you do it remote. Now, just like remote learning, remote teaching for coaches, are they really watching all this as it's going on? Because I know they have to do the heat dehydration, they have to do the concussions, I was telling somebody when I first became an athletic director, way back before you were even born, 1983, we could clear a kid in 4 minutes. All they had to do was fill out this pink sheet, type in your name. Did you pass 5 out of 7 classes? Did you get a physical? Here's what the physical was. Yes, no. Okay? And you had to put your address. Okay? Now, a funny story. One year we were going to the state finals, and I was the baseball coach in the AD. And we had to type everything in. This is before computers. This is before fax machines. We had to type it in and carbon copy. I don't know if you know what that is.
Yeah, I know what it is.
You know what it is?
Yeah.
I mean, this is something ancient. We had to send it up to the state. So I typed in everything. And Fred Roselle was the executive director of the FHSAA. And we're ready to go up to the state tournament, which was up at Baseball and Boardwalk. That place, it was up in outside of Orlando that closed. So I get a phone call from the state. He says, John, congratulations, going to the tournament again. We got a problem. I said, what's the matter? I said, well, you have 3 kids ineligible. I said, Mr. Roselle, you can't tell me that. I'm the athletic director, too. He's a great student. He says, no, we got a problem with the pink sheet you set in. I said, well, I typed it myself. He says, well, that's the problem. He says, one kid's 104, the other kid's 92, and one hasn't been born yet. I guess I typed the wrong things in. But, way back then, we didn't get a fine. He said, John, just bring up the sheet and everything. But, I mean, any new rules about, did he break in any new rules about transfers? Can you transfer now because, say, for example, I'll give you a story. Say Dade County does not have football. I hope they do, but suppose they don't. Can somebody transfer up to this area and say they want to just play football?
No, they need to transfer. If you're going to transfer to school, it needs to be for academics. And if you do transfer to a school, you're required to fill out it's called a GA4 form, which states that you haven't been recruited by any of the coaches to come up there come anywhere
So
for.
there's no waiver.
No.
Okay, because I saw something. There's a big football player, I forgot, in one state, I think California, which is
Yeah.
not having football and not having any sports until January, transferring to another state, moving because they're not playing in the football season.
I mean, well, technically, I mean, if a kid were to move into our area
Yeah.
and he were to be zoned for our school, there's,
Right.
you know, that would be one thing. But there, whenever everything was going on with the FHSAA and the start dates and whether we were going to even have football, like you were talking about
Yeah.
6 weeks ago,
6
this
weeks
was
ago, you weren't
so
gonna have it,
uncertain.
yeah.
There was a lot of talk of that with the kids,
Yeah.
and especially up in the Panhandle, like they could go over to Georgia and play or wherever. But yeah, but as of now, that's not an issue that I've noticed.
Okay.
I have noticed kids coming up here, but I think that's more just the area
Just
and growing. I
right.
think our area is growing, so a lot of families are electing St. Lucie County as opposed to maybe Palm Beach County or Broward County. I don't think it's an athletic decision. I think
Right.
it's more of an area decision.
And another thing that we always talk about on the show is scholarships. And I'm a big believer, they're going to find you if you're good enough. I mean, I know a lot of kids are saying, well, we're not going to play a whole season. Well, all these coaches need with all the technology going on is 2 or 3 games. I remember I was at a FHSA meeting with one of my principals, Mrs. Pike, and we sat next to Billy Donovan, who was the coach at Florida at that time. And he was the guest speaker. He was with the Oklahoma City Thunder for many years. And there's a lot of people in the audience, and they asked him a question, Coach Donovan, my coach doesn't promote my son, and he's got this stats and this stats. He says, ma'am, stop right here. I don't care about your son's stats. We're going to check him out. Is he a good kid? Does he go to class? What is his family background? Do you know that every major school has somebody that their job is to find players, So they're going to find you, and I don't think this is going to be a hindrance,
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, I think the parents worry a lot, but I agree with you. That's not.
Yeah.
I don't think that's an issue. I completely agree. If a kid can really play, that's what they get paid. They get paid a lot of money to make sure they find the kids who can play. So.
And they got the films now, and we were talking about the huddle situation
Yeah.
and other places like that, But as you can see, or you can't see because I'm looking at the clock, our show goes real fast.
Yeah.
We're just about done. I want to wish you the best of luck. I'm very, very happy you got the job. Keep the tradition going at Centennial. I love that school, and I'm always here if you need me for anything, and I'll be around. And like I said, I think you do a great job there. You got a great secretary, even though we're going to give her a hard time when I see her, Carmen.
Yes, I do for
Yeah.
sure. And I appreciate all your help. I mean, I know you've been very accommodating, like letting me reach out and any help
Anytime.
I've needed. Same thing with Steve, the old athletic director there, Jay.
Yeah.
All these guys you've talked about have
Yeah.
been super
Yeah.
accommodating. So I really appreciate that.
And I'd like to thank everybody for another edition of Hey Coach, and make sure everybody's safe out there, and we'll see you next month.